So a few years ago, I was trying to explain to someone the difference between a pessimist and an optimist. And I was trying to explain it. And I suddenly thought, oh, I had this image of a corridor. And I thought, yes, a pessimist sees life as a straight corridor where they go, well, I'm not going to do it. It's not going to work. I'm not going to do it. And I know for sure, and it's not going to work. Whereas an optimist sees life, like me, as a curving corridor where you go, well, I have no idea how this is going to work out, but you know what, I'll start walking, I'll see what comes into view, and just be a bit brave and see how it goes. The quite successful businessman, Henry Ford, the car entrepreneur, had a lovely quote, which was, whether you believe you can, or whether you believe you can't, you're right. And it got me thinking about two things. Firstly, how fear can prevent us from living the life that we dream of. And secondly, how what we believe totally shapes our lives and the world that we see. So let me tell you what I believe and what I have found as I walk around my curving corridor over the last 25 years. So it all starts off, I was very lucky to be brought up in an entrepreneurial family. And by that I mean my dad left school at 16 because he was bored. He started his first business in his early 20s. He went bust in his late 20s. He started again in his 30s, and he retired when he was 40. So the environment I was brought up in, which is quite exciting because we moved house when the bank took the house somewhere around in the 70s. But what I was brought up to believe was that you could have anything you want, and it was up to you. And my frame was quite wide in terms of what business I could do, how much money I could make. There were no limitations. My dad didn't have any limitations on what he felt he could do. And that was a very good grounding for me. And you've probably heard of this phrase, if you can conceive it and you believe it, you will achieve it. And I saw my dad do that. When he lost his business, he just went, okay, no problems. What did I learn? I learned a lot. He implemented it and he did really well with his next business. But I didn't have a clue what I wanted to achieve. I hadn't conceived anything. So I had a fun time at university. I went off and did art college. I worked for a small publishing company for 2 years. And then I answered the call to come back home because my dad had basically unretired himself because he was bored. And I felt that I needed to come and help him. And this is where the curving corridor started curving slightly more steeper than I'd imagined. I was at home with my mum one day when we got a phone call from the official receivers in Plymouth saying, oh, could you let Mr. Holmes know that his offer to buy a nightclub has been accepted? It's pretty much the first we'd heard of it. And I was like, what? We bought a nightclub? This is mad. I've been running a restaurant for him, which was a nightmare, and I thought this has got to be even worse. So my dad said, look, I'll give you the weekend to think about it, but I really want you to run the nightclub. And you know what? I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't like dancing, I love music, but I certainly don't like nightclubs. And I ended up running a nightclub for 16 years. That's definitely kind of a curving corridor moment. But it turns out that by not being interested in those things, I wasn't distracted by anything the club had to offer. So my eye was always on the ball, I was always sober, I was where I needed to be in the reception, I wasn't dancing or getting drunk at the bar. So it was a strange thing, but what I did like about the nightclub is I found out how much I enjoyed making other people happy and seeing people having a good time. So the opening night of the nightclub, we'd been going about half an hour, so I'd been in business for 30 minutes. There's a massive fight, a huge fight. All the people that had made the last nightclub go bust tried to come in. The new door team said, you're not coming in. And within the first sort of hour of being in business, the doormen are changing their shirts because they've got blood on them. And I'm like, what on earth have I got myself into here? This is absolutely ridiculous. I'll go back to the restaurant any day. Even when the chef walked out, this was better than having to have this go on. And I thought, this is a terrible start, but it just goes to show how every cloud has a silver lining, because actually, the police inspector came up to me following week and he went, officially, Rob, your doormen were a little heavy-handed, shall we say, little heavy-handed. Unofficially, that was the best start you could have hoped for in your nightclub career, because all the troublemakers, and there's not that many in our town, won't come back again. And you've sent out a message to everybody that you are not going to stand for people to behave poorly. And it turned out to be the best thing. And the club absolutely ran really smoothly after that. We hardly had any trouble. So it just goes to show, sometimes when things that seem awful happen, they generally happen for a really good reason. Now, lots of lessons learned from the nightclub. So I'm a bit obsessed with customer service, and I might give you a few things to think about in terms of how you view your customers. So I used to be at the reception. I used to like greeting people as they came in and taking their money off them, but it was mostly to be friendly rather than taking the money. So what happened is, for example, if it was raining and people came in and they're wearing glasses, their glasses steam up. I know this because I'm a glasses wearer. So what I used to do is have a box of tissues and I'd say, right, that's £10 please, or £5. I give them the change and I say, and here's a tissue for your glasses. And I heard a few people wiping their glasses as they went through into the club going, I would have paid a £5 just to be given a tissue. That was incredible. What a nice touch. And I had another lady that came to me, she was in tears, and she said, you promise you won't laugh, I've done something stupid. And I was like, go on then, try me. She said, I've accidentally flushed my purse down the toilet. Will you help me find it? I must admit, I did smile a bit. And she said, no, I'm serious, can you help me? And I went, okay, all right, I want to try to help this lady. So I put my rubber glove on, put my arm round the U-bend, whatever had gone, and it disappeared, it had gone. So she said, all right, okay, well, thanks for looking anyway. And about half an hour later, I remembered that we'd had a blockage out in our drains in the car park about a year before. I thought, it's a long shot. But I got my rubber gloves back on, I got a torch. 2 a.m. in the morning, I'm out there in the car park lifting a manhole cover. I looked down a meter, and covered in crap and loo paper and all sorts of stuff, this woman's purse was there. It just basically got stuck and it hadn't gone down the drains. So I went down the drains and I got her purse out. I gave it a clean off and I went to find her. She was so grateful. She's like, you're the best nightclub manager ever. And she was a great brand advocate for the club for many, many years. So happy surprises, surprising your customer is something that I get a big kick out of. So the club turned out to be a great success. It opened on average 8 hours and 15 minutes a week, which for all of you with the business is kind of a day's work. Not even that, probably just part of a day's work. But the club was only open for a few hours a week, really. And in that space, it did £100,000 worth of net profit a year, every year for 12 years. Did about £450,000 turnover. So for a business that wasn't open very much, it was a little gold mine. And I learned so much from it. I learned how to run a business, basically. And my dad, unfortunately, died a year after the club opened. He was only 51, which was very sad, but it was a beautiful parting gift to him. For someone, he knew I always want to be in business, and he basically said, right, here's an opportunity to learn how to do it. You don't need to go to university, you've already done that. You wasted 3 years doing a geography degree. Here's how you run a business. And I kind of learned the secret to running a business was quite simple, really. Number one, find a product or service that enough people actually want. Number two, take in more money than you spend out. Sounds really obvious, doesn't it? But it's hard sometimes to take in more money than you spend out. Number three, make sure you have enough cash to trade, because you can be profitable, as some of you might know, but still not be able to pay the bills. And number four, treat your customers like gods, so that they'll look after you. So around about 1996, 97, I was really bored of doing the club because it was only the weekends. So we started having children. And it was something to do for the long winter nights. And we had our first son, Sam, was born. And he wouldn't sleep. He was a little bugger. He slept 4 or 5 hours a night. And it was our sister-in-law, who was from Austria. She said, oh, you ought to try a baby sleeping bag. And we were like, what on earth is that? Because like most parents then, we were battling with sheets and blankets. He was kicking them off. We were putting them back on, kicking them off, putting them back on. She said, try a baby sleeping bag. So we bought one off a company that was importing them from Germany. Turns out in Europe, in France and Germany and Holland, they've been using them for years, but they just hadn't caught on over here. So we started using one. And for those of you who don't know, this is what a grow bag looks like, or a baby sleeping bag. And not my favourite pattern, but anyway, it goes to show you. And with a baby sleeping bag or a grow bag, the children don't use any other bedding. They just have a bottom sheet, and that means that wherever they move in the night, they'll always stay warm. Lots of different sizes, lots of different TOG ratings for the different times of the year. So we put this bag on Sam, and he went 12 hours a night. It was like a miracle. So we started buying them, and then we had another child, Lucy, and we started using them. And somewhere I just thought, you know what, I'd nicknamed them grow bags. I don't know why, I don't do gardening, I don't grow tomatoes in them, but I just thought it popped into my head. And I found a manufacturer in Holland. I emailed him before I'd even talked to my wife. I said, right, we're starting a company doing baby sleeping bags. We call them grow bags. Would you be our manufacturer? And that's how it started, in that kind of email, really. So we started off at a trade fair with very low expectations. Our business plan had originally said that we would do 70,000 turnover. Our business advisor from Business Link God bless him because he's passed on now, but the wonderful Ernest Fleck, some of you might remember, said, make something up, that's not enough. Stick in 200 grand and just make the numbers work. So we stuck in 200 grand and we sort of thought maybe that would help us get our loan to get the bank interested. Well, in our first full financial year, we did £1 million turnover. The next year we did 3. The next year was 5 million turnover. And by the time I exited the company 3 years ago, we were doing 13 million turnover. So we really didn't expect to sell more than a couple of hundred bags at that first trade fair. And yet we sold out by lunchtime. And in fact, our queue was actually disrupting the other 3 stands next to us. So it was an incredible surprise. The corridor definitely was very curvy that day. So the Grow Company, as it was eventually rebranded, sold to Mothercare, to John Lewis, fully multi-channel, direct to consumer, direct to trade for the multiples and the independents. We also exported, so 20% of the turnover came from export, exported to over 30 countries. We also acted as people's exclusive distributor in this country for products like the Bumbo. And we also had our own mail order business. So we basically decided we'd have every channel rather than just picking on one. And because we'd always started off like that, we managed our relationships with the big supermarkets or with the big retailers like Mothercare and John Lewis by never undercutting them. So we always made sure that our online offering was generally always the most expensive. And we managed to keep a good relationship going with all the multiples. But it was a fine line to tread. When we started, about 1% of children were using baby sleeping bags. After about 5-6 years, we got up to 95%. So in a very short space of time, we completely converted the UK over to baby sleeping bags from loose bedding. And I really didn't expect that either. But the biggest surprise, really, and this is another thing that you just didn't expect, I didn't expect around the corridor, was in September of 2011, I was driving up the M5, just south of Tiverton, although that's really not important. And it was a bad week for me personally. My marriage had hit the rocks. When something happened to me on the M5, can't really explain it very easily, but something shifted in me. A little light came on. The universe nudged me awake. I had tears rolling down my cheeks. And it lasted about 20 seconds, and I've never really been quite the same since. It's really changed me. Some people call it a spiritual opening or a spiritual emergency. And it doesn't really matter what you call it. Something shifted in me, and my life was never quite the same after that. I never went back into the Grow Bag offices from that day on, so it was quite a major shift in my life. We'd already decided before that to look at selling our shares in the business, but this was the moment to put the MD in place so that the business could be proven to have run without me as a founder, as the MD. And I didn't step foot into the office for 18 months until it sold. And then I went back in to say goodbye to everybody and to thank them. So that was something else I didn't expect. And it's taken me a few years to work out what happened and what I meant to be doing with it, because I really wasn't expecting it. And I'm now writing children's books. And my first book just came out about a month ago, called The Little Drop of Water. And this seems to be my thing now, is writing books and what I would call wisdom education for kids. So I haven't got time to tell you more about that, but that's what I'm doing at the moment, and doing public speaking. So I'm going to try and whiz you through a few things that I've learned over the last 20 years, combining my business experience and this rather strange, life-changing experience on the M5. Number 1, look after your customers. Okay, so you've kind of got an idea. I'm a bit obsessional with my customer service. When we started the Grow Bag business, we had 4 staff, and I got 8 phone lines installed because I couldn't stand the thought of someone getting the engaged home if all 4 of us were taking an order. I needed another 4 lines for the voicemail. We always under-promised. We said it was going to take you 3 days for your Grow Bag to arrive. We sent everything out next day. We made the postman wait most days. If someone ordered at 5 o'clock and the post van was pulling in, we'd make it our kind of game to see if we could get it out correctly in the post that night. And then people would be like, wow, it came really quickly. Much better than saying you do next day and then it doesn't arrive. Look forward to your customers complaining. People don't like people complaining, but actually if you look at them in a different light, they are doing you the most enormous service. Because 9 out of 10 people, because we're British and we're a little bit reserved, aren't we? We don't say how we feel. We don't want to hurt people's feelings. But the 1 out of 10 that say, do you know what? Your service is shocking. My Grow Bag didn't arrive. The product wasn't very good quality. Listen to what they've got to say, because they're there to tell you something you need to hear. So look forward to your customers complaining. We had one chap called Dave Weintraub. That it'll always be on my mind because I took the phone call from him. I had to hold the receiver off. He was very angry. Something had gone wrong. New dad. I said, Dave, I'm going to sort it out for you. I'm going to get it back to you. Don't worry, I'll sort it out. Over the coming months, people used to put on the website where they heard about us, and it would be Mother and Baby Magazine, NCT Group, Other. In Other, 20 or 30% over the next few months was Dave Weintraub. His name had cropped up. We turned him round from being a disgruntled customer into one of the best brand advocates we could have ever hoped for, just by looking after him. So look after your customers, and then they'll look after you. Number 2, protect and invest in your brand. So the reason why I'm here today, having sold the shares in the business 3 years ago, is effectively a private equity company invested in 3 letters. The letter G, the letter R, and the letter O. Together is grow, grow bag, grow clock, grow company, grow anywhere blind. To get 3 letters to mean something that adds up to millions of pounds worth of brand value for customers wasn't by coincidence. It took a lot of effort. And I give you an example in the early days of how much effort it took in order to protect the brand. About 2 years in, our manufacturer had sent us a whole load of 40 manufactured grow bags, and a lot of them, 35,000 of them, which is pretty much half of our entire summer stock at those days. We started to see them coming in, we got a few returns coming back, and the quality wasn't what we wanted. So we thought, right, we withdrew them off the market, we had a bit of a think, we knew what we needed to do. We went to our bank and we said, we'd like to borrow an extra 100,000 on our overdraft facility for the next 6 months because we're going to bury 35,000 grow bags in a landfill site to prevent them from going on the market and look after our brand. They were amazed, but they said, no problem, you're doing the right thing. That's very unusual that you've done that, but we'll give you the extra loan and we'll get you through your cash flow squeeze. So we did that. We couldn't risk those bags being out on the market. We'd already worked so hard to build up our reputation, and it nearly killed the business financially because we had half the stock basically buried and we couldn't sell it. But there's that level of detail and commitment and passion in order to build a brand, especially in this market, which is baby safety. Parents are trusting us and that brand to leave their babies in our products for 18 hours without anybody watching them. It's a huge amount of trust, and so we had to get it right. Number 3, be cheeky and get noticed. Think out of the box. Think about how you can get publicity and how you can generate marketing material. At the nightclub, I had a crazy idea, which was to do the ultimate no dress code night, a naturist night. Did I get that? No clothes. So in order to I had some shots taken beforehand with some actors, carefully sort of positioned to protect their modesty. We generated a lot of publicity for it, and on the night I got some naturist clubs to come in order to make the place actually look full. It's lovely to see some of you here today. Didn't recognise you actually with your clothes on, but it was lovely. I mean, commercially it was a flop. I hadn't really factored in that no one had anywhere to keep their money, so it didn't work so well. But we got so much publicity, national publicity, for doing a naturist night, say the ultimate no dress code night. And then when it came to the grow business, we had a little stand at Earl's Court, and I took the lights from the nightclub, changed the gobos over, which are the bits that make the shape, and a bit like the Batman logo, I used our grow logo and shone it across the roof inside of Earl's Court 2. So we had our little stand, but we had this massive logo going backwards and forwards. We kind of twisted the rules of what you were allowed to do, but we got away with it. We upset our competitors, so we knew we were onto the right track. So my experience running a business, especially with the grow business, and also on that first day of running the nightclub, is like a 110 meters hurdle race, where you catch your shin on every single hurdle. And anyone who's running your business, you know what that's like. You might have had a shin moment in the last week. You've got a few more coming up. You just have to keep going, and it's painful sometimes. We had the problems with the fight on the first night. We had the neighbours for about 3 years kicking up about the noise outside. We almost didn't get grow off the ground because the bank said they did some research. We said we wanted to borrow 30 grand to put all our phone lines in, and they said, right, we've done some research and nobody is using baby sleeping bags in the UK, so we're not going to lend you the money because there's no market for it. And you're like, hello? That's exactly why we want to do it. So we said, how about if we give you all the Ds to the nightclub as security? Oh, that changes everything. You know how the banks work. They want to be safe. So we managed to get going. We nearly went bust twice with cash flow problems. That wasn't the worst one when we had to bury the other grow bags in the landfill site, but we had other cash flow squeezes in 2 different recessions. We had to go down from 40 staff to 32. We did that a couple of times over the years. Very painful. I had to do that. Didn't enjoy having to make people redundant, but we needed to do that to keep the business going. So if you're passionate, it kind of keeps you going through all of these tough times. I like this quote, which says, "Success is going from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm." And actually, I don't like the word failure. I think it should be changed to a learning opportunity, because I don't believe in labelling events as failures or mistakes. Just because something didn't go the way you thought it was going to mean, doesn't mean that you haven't got lots to learn from it. Just relabeling it helps. So, the Grow Company made a difference. And a lot of that we could measure by the work that we did with a charity called the Foundation for the Study of Infant Deaths. They've now rebranded to the Lullaby Trust, and they are the UK's leading medical research and support authority on cot death. We started working with them very, very early by asking them, how should we make a grow bag safe? And they gave us some instructions. And we started off with them, and then after a couple of years, I managed to sign them up on an exclusive. So we were the only baby sleeping bag that they recommend in exchange for us giving them a donation every year. This relationship was absolutely key to building up the safety of what the brand stood for by having the leading cot death charity supporting us publicly. And we raised over £1 million for that charity over the course of those 10 years. It was a very important part of the business success. And we know we could never really go public with it at the time, and I'm out of the business now, but they saw a reduction in the cot death rate steadily over the years where we were building up the grow bags, because children used to die from loose bedding, but with 95% of children sleeping under grow bags and not under loose bedding, there were just children not dying from that anymore. So I'd like to think there are a few 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds out there today, maybe younger as well, who wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Sam not sleeping well many years ago, 19 years ago. And if you haven't found your passion yet, don't worry, follow your curiosity. I love that phrase. The curving corridor is all about curiosity. It's like, okay, let's see where this leads. Let's give it a go. Let's see what comes up. And I think that's also, if you haven't got the passion, just be curious and see what happens. Number 5, thoughts and beliefs are powerful. So, can you see my thoughts? It's not a trick question, don't worry. You can't, obviously. But it doesn't mean that they're not there. In the same way that we've got all your mobile phone data, all the satellite channels, all the radio communications between the police, everything is in this room. But we can't see it. But it's all vibrating, it's all there. And I've come to realize that our thoughts are just the same. You should think about them more. And think about what you think about, because they actually have an energy. And I've known this for many, many years, that when I thought about somebody, they would call me, or they'd email me. And there was a chap I met at a trade fair many years ago in America called Tom. I hadn't had any contact with him for about 10 months, and I was on a train to London. I wrote in my notepad, contact Tom from EB Beds. Brilliant, I'll see how he's doing. Pulled into Paddington, cranked open my laptop, this is before mobile phones did internet, opened up, and there was an email that had arrived an hour before saying, "Hi Rob, just suddenly had the thought to get in contact with you." So I kind of realised at that point, and actually many times before that, that actually thoughts have an energy, and that we're connected to everybody. And you will all have experiences that you might have put down to coincidences, but they're not coincidences. Plus, I also worked out recently that when my mother's stressed, I get a migraine. Obviously, the umbilical cord is still going somewhere there. And here's another surprising fact. What you think about, you attract. But you really need to believe what you think about to manifest, which means to make real something that you're thinking about. And those of you might have a look at the Google, if you look at the law of attraction, you can have a look and see a bit more of the science behind it. And the law of attraction doesn't care whether you believe in it or not. A bit like gravity. If I drop something, it's going to fall. Gravity doesn't care whether you believe in it, nor does the law of attraction. It just exists, and it's worth having a look at. And your beliefs are more powerful than you can imagine. Or better phrased, your beliefs are as powerful as you can imagine. They're as powerful as you can imagine. Number 6, get out there, network, make yourself available, and be open to coincidences. Not that I believe in coincidences. Because the universe is always trying to help you. All you've got to do is listen. And I give you an example of why I don't believe in coincidences, and why I believe that thoughts really are powerful things, and why I believe that we're all actually connected to each other in a way that we probably didn't really understand or appreciate. When we started off, I told you when we first started the business, this idea, I found a Dutch manufacturer for baby sleeping bags. I thought it'd be good to have somebody close in Europe, didn't even think about going further afield. And we're just about to launch the business, and things are going really badly with this manufacturer. We'd gone out to see him 3 or 4 times. The manufacturer was not being honest with us. The quality wasn't what we wanted, but we were committed to launching. We'd already ordered our first few thousand bags. And he dumped us, me and my then wife, dumped us back at a train station in the middle of nowhere and drove off. The trains had all broken that day. There was a massive power failure. So there were no trains, there were no taxis, there was virtually tumbleweed going through this little back town in the middle of nowhere. So I'm sitting there with Uvriel, making some notes. And one of the notes that we make is, we have got to find a baby sleeping bag manufacturer, and we're going to go to China because we need a better price and we need a better quality. And I was like, yep, that's what we need to do. We also need to find a blooming taxi or a way to get to Amsterdam. About half an hour later, a taxi drives by. It's already hired. And I jump out in front of it, wave it down like a lunatic. And I was like, stop, stop, stop. I need a taxi. I know you're hired, but any chance, do you know another taxi company? Can you come back and get us? And he went, hang on a sec, I'll just check with my passenger. No, she's okay. She's going 10 minutes on the way to Amsterdam. You'll be in the car for 10 minutes. Do you mind sharing the back seat? No problems at all. If she doesn't mind, we don't mind. So we get into the back of this taxi. We look across, there's a Chinese lady, obviously Chinese lady. We said, hello, what do you do? And she says, oh, I'm over from China meeting people. I'm 4 hours late for my meeting and the trains have cocked up my schedule. Oh, what do you do? She said, oh, we were a textile factory. And what sort of textile factory is it? Well, we specialise in baby products. What kind of baby products do you specialise in? Well, we actually make baby sleeping bags. Have you heard of them? She opened up her bag and it was full of baby sleeping bags. She'd been sent by her factory to meet her existing clients in Holland, was running massively late and ended up in this taxi. We shared a taxi for 10 minutes with a Chinese baby sleeping bag manufacturer just after we decided that that's exactly what we needed to help our business grow. She was our main manufacturer for 8 years. And we had this link. So that's why I don't believe in coincidences, and when I know the universe is helping us in ways that we can't even begin to imagine how. Finally, something else I learnt over the last few years. A wise Indian sage, imagine the guy, the guru with the big beard, is sitting there in his ashram, and one of his students came up to him and said, Master, how should I treat others? And he replied with a knowing glint and a smile, there are no others, it's all us. And this is something I directly experienced in those 20 seconds on the M5 back in 2011. I experienced that sense of connectedness and that we're all one thing. We, everybody here and everybody on this planet, we're the ultimate Wi-Fi network. We're much more reliable than BT fiber. We're always connected, we're always here for each other. But you already know that, you'll already have your own experiences. How else could I have met my Chinese baby sleeping bag manufacturer in the back of this cab for 10 minutes if there wasn't some level of coordination going on? And why do I get so much pleasure out of looking after my customers? Well, I think it's because actually I recognise that they're just another aspect of me in a different shape. So it's actually kind of selfish. I'm sort of helping myself, but it works because we all benefit from it. So the curving corridor has been extremely kind to me. It's brought me lots of surprises, and I suspect there's still more to come. I'm only 47, and hopefully I've got a few more years walking around the corridor. And I'm going to leave you with 2 quotes about overcoming fear, because that's where originally the starting point was about being brave and giving things a go. So Richard Branson had this quote, and I think you'll agree he's done pretty well. His corridor delivered pretty well. The brave may not live forever, but the cautious do not live at all. I love that quote. And the second is by a Buddhist teacher with a name I always struggle to say, but I'll have a go. It's Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. And she said, oh sorry, he's a he. He said this. He said, I've got good news and bad news. He says, the bad news is you're falling through the air, nothing to hang on to, no parachute. The good news is there's no ground. So, thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions.